What if a ghost could solve its own murder? Sounds like something out of a horror movie. But over a century ago, in a quiet town tucked into the hills of West Virginia, that's exactly what happened. Or at least, that's what the court heard. This is the chilling true story of the Greenbrier Ghost. In 1897, Greenbrier County, West Virginia, was a quiet, tight-knit place, the kind of town where everyone knew everyone, and life moved at a steady, predictable pace. The biggest stories making the rounds were usually about someone's missing livestock or a church bake sale. But that calm was interrupted when a young woman named Zona Heaster was found dead in her home under odd circumstances. At first, people didn't ask too many questions. The doctor said it was natural causes, so most folks assumed it was just one of those things, an unfortunate end to a short life. Sadly, yes, but nothing suspicious. Her mother, though, wasn't convinced. Mary Jane Heaster couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. And soon enough, she claimed her daughter started showing up, not in memories or dreams, but in full-on ghostly visits. According to her, Zona had returned to explain exactly what had happened to her. What followed was one of the strangest turns. The body was dug up. The autopsy raised red flags, and Zona's husband ended up in court, all because of what her mother claimed a ghost told her. It sounds like a ghost story, but this time it ended with a real-life conviction. So what exactly happened? Zona Heaster was just 23 years old when she met a handsome drifter named Erasmus Shue. He went by Trout, and he had come to Greenbrier County hoping for a fresh start. To the outside world, he seemed like a blacksmith trying to make a better life. He was charming, strong, and well-dressed. When he took a liking to Zona, it wasn't long before sparks flew. Despite her mother's skepticism, the two married in October 1896. It all happened quickly, a little too quickly. Mary Jane Heaster, Zona's mother, had a bad feeling about Trout from the start. She called it a mother's intuition. Or maybe it was something deeper, but she didn't trust him, not even a little. Zona moved into Trout's home, and for a few months it seemed the newlyweds were adjusting to life together. Then came January. On the morning of January 23, 1897, a young boy named Andy Jones was asked to run an errand for Trout. His task? Go to the house and ask Zona if she needed anything from the store. When he got there, the front door was open. Inside, the house was still, uncomfortably still. And there she was, lying at the foot of the stairs, motionless. Her body was stretched out, her feet together, one hand by her side and the other resting across her stomach. Her head was tilted unnaturally to one side. Andy ran. By the time Trout arrived, neighbors had already gathered. But instead of letting the doctor examine the body immediately, Trout took control. He cradled her head in his arms and dressed her himself, an odd thing for a grieving husband to do at that moment. He picked out a high-necked dress with a stiff collar and placed a veil over her face. By the time Dr. George Knapp made it to the house, there wasn't much he could do. Trout wouldn't let him near the body. He sobbed, wailed, and refused to leave Zona's side. Every time the doctor tried to look closer, Trout would tighten his grip on her head or burst into a fresh wave of grief. Eventually, the doctor backed off. He changed his initial report and listed the cause of death as everlasting faint, an old-fashioned and vague term for sudden death, but even that didn't stick. Not long after, he revised it again, this time to childbirth complications, despite there being no evidence that Zona was pregnant. It felt like he was grasping at straws, and Mary Jane Heaster noticed. From the very beginning, she had been uneasy about her daughter's marriage. After the funeral, those instincts turned into something stronger, a deep, gnawing feeling that refused to go away. Mary Jane couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't shake the sense that something had been missed or deliberately hidden about her daughter's mysterious passing. So she did what any mother in those circumstances would have done. She prayed hard. Every night for weeks, she asked for a sign, some kind of clarity, something that would tell her what really happened inside that house. And then came the answer. On the fourth night, sometime after midnight, she said she was startled awake by a coldness in the room. When she opened her eyes, there was Zona, standing silently at the foot of the bed. Her skin was pale, her eyes were calm but sad. Her dress flowed softly. Mary Jane said it wasn't a dream, it was real. She could feel her daughter's presence. The ghost didn't scream or try to scare her. Instead, she spoke in a low, steady voice. She told her mother that she hadn't died of illness or childbirth or anything natural. She had been murdered by her own husband. She described the argument that sparked it, a simple dinner disagreement. She hadn't cooked any meat, and that, somehow, had been enough to send him into a violent rage. He grabbed her by the neck, she said, and with both hands snapped it. Then, according to Mary Jane, the ghost slowly turned her head, one full rotation all the way around, to show exactly how her neck had been broken. After that, she faded into the darkness. But the visits didn't stop there. Over the next few nights, the ghost returned, 4 nights in total. Each time she appeared in a different part of the house, sometimes at the foot of the bed, sometimes in the hallway, even once near the front door. She didn't speak every time, but when she did, the message was the same. She had been then killed, and she wanted justice. One night, she showed her mother bruises on her neck and marks near her collarbone. Another time, she described how her husband had tried to cover up the crime by dressing her himself, forcing the doctor to rush the exam, and manipulating the narrative before anyone had a chance to ask questions. And for Mary Jane, that was it. She believed every word, whether it was a dream, a vision, or something else entirely. She was convinced her daughter had reached out from beyond the grave to share the truth, so she didn't wait around. She went straight to the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston, and laid everything out. Preston wasn't the kind of man to be swept up in ghost stories. He was a lawyer, which made him a natural skeptic. But as he listened, he noticed something. Mary Jane wasn't frantic or rambling. She wasn't trying to stir up drama. She was clear, collected, and unwavering. There was something about the way she told the story that made him stop and think. And, while he may not have believed in ghosts, he did believe in evidence. There was even a chance that what she said could be verified with a real autopsy, then it was worth taking a second look. And the more he looked into the case, the more questions piled up. Why had the doctor only performed a brief, partial examination? Why was the husband so quick to dress the body himself, something typically done by women in the community? And why had the cause of death been quietly changed after the fact without a proper investigation? As suspicions grew, word spread through Greenbrier County. Eventually, John Alfred Preston was convinced as well. And so, in an unusual but bold move, the authorities decided to take action. They exhumed the body. On February 22, 1897, nearly a month after Zona's burial, her coffin was pulled from the frozen West Virginia ground. Despite the harsh winter conditions, the body was in a decent enough state for examination. This time, the autopsy would be thorough and by the book. No emotions, no rush, just facts. And those facts were shocking. It turned out her neck had been broken cleanly just below the skull. Her windpipe was crushed, and there were bruises around her throat. The injuries weren't consistent with a fall or natural causes. They were consistent with strangulation. The official cause of death was updated to reflect it. A broken neck resulting from manual strangulation. Suddenly, what had once been written off as a tragic accident or illness now pointed to a violent crime. And Mary Jane, she wasn't just a grieving mother. She had been right all along. Edward Trout Shue was arrested and formally charged with the murder of his wife. When authorities questioned him, his story didn't hold up. First, he said Zona had collapsed. Then he claimed she had fallen down the stairs. At another point, he said she simply passed away in her sleep. His explanations shifted too often to be taken seriously, and the evidence was stacking up against him. The trial began in June, and it quickly became clear that this wasn't going to be an ordinary courtroom affair. Shue's defense team leaned heavily into the supernatural angle. They argued that the entire case was tainted from the start, thanks to Mary Jane's claim that her daughter's ghost had visited her. Their goal was to discredit her, paint her as delusional, and imply that the investigation had been shaped more by a mother's intuition than by fact. But their plan didn't exactly go as expected. When Mary Jane took the stand, she didn't rant or rave. She told her story in a measured tone. She wasn't emotional or erratic. She simply explained what she believed had happened, that her daughter had returned to her in a dreamlike vision, revealing what no one else could see. While the judge instructed the jury to ignore anything supernatural in their deliberations, the testimony clearly left an impression. It gave the entire courtroom context: why Zona's body had been exhumed, why suspicions had been raised, and why the case had gained momentum after weeks of silence. And in the end, it wasn't the ghost story that convicted Shue. It was the cold, physical evidence: bruising, a broken neck, an inconsistent alibi, and his increasingly suspicious behavior after Zona's death. The jury deliberated for just over an hour before returning a guilty verdict. Shue was sentenced to life in prison. Trout. Shue didn't last long in prison. Just 3 years into his sentence, he died of unknown causes in 1900. Zona was reburied in her family plot, where her gravestone still stands today. A modest stone engraved simply with "In memory of Zona Heaster Shue, Greenbrier Ghost, 1876 to 1897. But what's most remarkable isn't just that her killer was caught. It's that, for the first and only time in U.S. legal history, the testimony of a ghost was said to have helped convict a murderer. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the Greenbrier Ghost remains one of the most chilling and fascinating cases of all time. A quiet town, a grieving mother, a message from beyond the grave, and a justice system that, in the end, listened. Over 125 years later, people still visit Zona's grave. They leave flowers, coins, and sometimes notes, some for her, some for her mother. Because in a world full of unanswered questions, the Greenbrier Ghost is one eerie reminder that sometimes the dead don't stay silent, not until the truth comes out. So, what do you think? Was this really a case of justice from beyond the grave? Did Mary Jane truly see her daughter's ghost, or was it simply a mother's grief pushing her to uncover the truth no one else would? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you believe really happened in that quiet West Virginia town. And if you enjoyed this story and want more true crime cases with twists you've never heard before, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a mystery. Until next time.